Over 100 million worldwide album sales. He's a multiple award-winning artist, writer and producer. 24 UK Top 40 hits with Eurythmics, including 9 top 10 hits, a string of multi-platinum albums, and a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee. Not bad going, Dave. Love is a Stranger reached number 54 when originally released in late 1982. Imagine a world where that wasn't a hit. Well, we didn't have to because it finally reached number 6 when re-released in the spring of 83. Here is what's coming up on the show tonight. Dave and I will be chatting all things Eurythmics and beyond, and he'll be answering your questions too.
And I'll also be playing some of my personal favourite tracks from the decade, including my very own Bit in the Middle.
And I'm going to have a bit in the middle too.
Steady.
Thank you.
Easy.
All right.
Settle.
I'm settled. Dave, what's your first choice and why have you chosen it?
My first choice is China Girl. I chose this song because, you know, this was the dawn of the MTV age and people were starting to experiment with little mini sort of vignettes, films, and David Bowie, obviously so visionary, leapt in with this, and the video was so strange when you see the Chinese girls say, "Why don't you shut your mouth?" And it's like, oh dear me, I like it.
Sounds of the 80s, celebrating 40 years of Sweet Dreams with one half of Eurythmics, Dave Stewart, with me in the studio. You obviously met David Bowie.
I have done many occasions.
What was he like? Were you good mates?
He once took me to his apartment. We were at dinner at somebody's house. He said, "Hey, do you want to come with me?" And we went to this apartment and we lay on our back and he put on the whole of one of his new albums. We listened to the whole thing and didn't speak, you know what I mean, just the whole thing from beginning to end. And afterwards he goes, "What do you think?" "What can you say?" I was like... He was a big Eurythmics fan, actually, and Nile Rodgers was telling me that him and Bowie, during the recording of that album, would talk about Eurythmics a lot, and they would play tracks a lot.
For inspiration?
No, just, you know, listening to different sounds, I suppose.
How brilliant is that? You're choosing your favourite songs from the 80s tonight.
Yeah.
And a favourite band of mine coming up right now, Tears for Fears.
It was interesting because when Annie and I, you know, obviously Sweet Dreams exploded all over the world, and so we'd be at different parts of the world on tour, and you would hear certain British acts on the radio, and obviously Tears for Fears was one of them. I particularly like Mad World because it's even madder now than it was. Probably not, I mean, but it just was to do like everybody, you know, the moment you were in and the situations that were happening, and then this song come on the radio. I think I was in Australia at the time, and it was like, wow, really, really great, and a great duo, you know. All around me are familiar faces.
Tears for Fears' debut hit, reaching number 3 in November 82, and they released their debut album, The Hurting, the following year, so also celebrating 40 years this year. 1983, David, I mean, it was an amazing year for British music. Many bands breaking the USA, second British invasion, and Eurythmics were at the forefront of that with Sweet Dreams. Why do you think it was that Britain invaded the US that year? Do you think it was down to MTV?
Well, I think it was down to a mixture of things, and I think we'd come out of the other side of punk music, which was amazing, and they really sort of wiped the slate clean. But in America, they just didn't really understand it at all, apart from the Clash's slightly guitar-y sort of entry into the place. So when MTV started, you know, I think it was in 1980 or 81, a lot of the videos were just people standing around playing like a band, or will be filmed. But already in Britain, they'd come out of punk, and then there'd been the New Romantics, and then Boy George was making videos. And when they hit MTV, which was right across America, I think a whole load of kids who had been a bit fed up of the kind of massive dinosaur bands were just like, whoa, what's this, you know? Melody was reborn in a different way. you know, so there was massive melodies coming out of all the bands. There was a kind of tension in the use of electronic equipment. You know, we weren't trying to recreate, oh, well, let's use this drum machine to try and sound like real drums. So whether it was Tears for Fears or New Order or Eurythmics or anybody that came out of Britain were very excited about, like,
embracing the new technology.
Yeah, because you see, basically, most of us were broke. And we'd been through a lot of variations, and it was suddenly, hang on, I could actually make this in my bedroom with a few bits and pieces, and that's what we literally did.
So Sweet Dreams, I Made of This, your second album, was released in January 83, and then the iconic single released just weeks later. And the last time we met, you told me a great story behind Sweet Dreams about how you and Annie were on the verge of calling it a day.
Yeah.
Is that because the first album didn't go that well?
The first album was just totally unsuccessful, and the record company thought we were really weird, which we were, and we'd made this very strange record called In the Garden, which also the fans love. But the record label were like, nah, I'm not sure about these two. So I thought, well, we better do something quick, and if we had our own equipment, we wouldn't even worry about the record label. We drew up, me and this guy Adam, had a bit of paper, and Adam was writing, we need this Space Echo, and the cheapest things possible, second-hand, an 8-track tape recorder. We had just enough stuff, you know, to make a recording.
So the reason that your sound went from guitars to electronic was basically you buying equipment that you could use in your homemade studio, so the record company didn't have to get involved and fund it, and you could make your own record the way you wanted to.
Exactly.
Wow.
And you know, I mean, obviously going to see a bank manager looking like Annie and I did and saying, yes, we'd like to borrow like this money to buy this equipment, you'd think he would have said, I don't understand what you're talking about. But when I explained, well, see, with this equipment we can then make this album and another album and another album, which we did. We made Be Yourself Tonight on the 8-track too, with like There Must Be an Angel and everything. He understood that, and he agreed and shook our hand and said, okay. It was 4,800 and something. And we went outside, and just when we were like, you know, going, wow, thanks so much, and shaking his hand, this guy I knew who was like a sort of conceptual artist, he pulled up in a Mini, and I could see him at the corner of my eye. And I was like, oh no, what's he going to do? And he had about 8 cats with him in the car.
Cats,
and he took some out and he gave one to the bank manager, and he had it on his head, and one to me and Annie, and we were holding cats in the street in Crouch End, and he was taking Polaroids, and I thought, oh no, he's going to turn around and say, no, I've changed my mind, but he didn't.
And so Sweet Dreams in particular, at that time you said Annie wanted to give it all up.
We had a sort of upstairs of a picture framing factory with like very eaves that you couldn't really walk straight, you had to bend down, and the equipment was on a board, and like Annie was lying there, because I was trying for ages to make this drum machine work. You might have seen it in the Sweet Dreams video. It had wood around it. It was a prototype, and I was fiddling around with it, and she was thinking to herself, nothing is going to work, should give up. And all of a sudden I tuned this drum all the way down, like dum 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 dum, put it on the first beat, which is a kind of James Brown trick, you know. Most dance records are on the backbeat, like boom clack, like, you know, Beat It, Michael Jackson or whatever. So I came with this boom, doom, 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 boom, you know. And then I had this little tiny synthesizer. I was doom, 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 doom. And Annie sort of leapt up, ran over to this keyboard, which wasn't ours. It was a guy who had renting us the place, which we switched it on, not meant to touch it. And it had that kind of stringy sound, and all of a sudden she played that, and altogether it came out with just 3 tracks, meaning 3 sounds. And it was boom, doom, 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 doom. And we just knew it was great, and we kept playing it round and round, and we were already celebrating. And then Annie sang, "Sweet dreams are made of this," and we were like, yeah, this is great. Then it was just going round and round and round, you know. We didn't mind because we liked it, but then it was like, probably needs another bit to it. And he wrote these great lyrics about some of them want to use you, some of them want to be used by you. She was scribbling away as fast as she could. You see, the song is quite dark. It's not really saying, hooray, sweet dreams are made of this. It's kind of saying, is this what the world's come to? Is this the sweet dream that we were all thinking about? So I suggested, how about rising chords in the middle, hold your head up, moving on, keep your head up, moving on. And it ends, we always should end the live one with just hold your head up.
Yeah.
Meaning, well, beyond hope, there's always hope. That was my motto.
Sweet dreams are made of these. Looking for something. Sweet dreams are made.
A UK number 2, a US number 1, and a song that's going to outlive us all. Sweet Dreams, kept off the top by Bonnie Tyler's Total Eclipse of the Heart over here. Yeah. It's going to outlive us all because it was inducted into America's National Recording Registry earlier this year.
Yeah, the Library of Congress. I got worried when I saw a letter came from the Library of Congress, and I was like, uh-oh, well, they're done.
Yeah.
But, they choose a few, not very many songs a year, and they put them to be saved there forever.
And it was the fourth single from the Sweet Dreams album because the record company didn't think it was a hit. Is that right?
I think the label thought we were pretty weird, and they couldn't really understand the structure of the song. It's got a strange structure, but we always thought, well, it's like all chorus, And eventually it was a guy playing it in Cleveland on a radio station on an import vinyl, and he kept ringing up the record label in America going, you've got this band called the Eurythmics, and every time I play it, all the phones and like...
The Eurythmics.
The Eurythmics. And eventually they went, oh, hang on, he means the Eurythmics from UK. And the message filtered back to us.
Now, 1983 wasn't just about the Sweet Dreams album because just 10 months later you released the follow-up Touch, which was released 40 years ago this month, Dave.
Oh,
and we'll hear a track from that album next. The lead single from Eurythmics' third album, Touch, Who's That Girl, reached number 3 in the summer of 1983. The album was your first chart topper by early 1984.
Yeah, it was interesting because Annie and I had actually written Sweet Dreams and recorded Sweet Dreams album in 1982. It just so happened that we released in January, I think, 1983. But in America, it took them a while for it to be released. So
you didn't write more songs than you needed for the Sweet Dreams album, and then that became Touch.
Annie and I never wrote more songs than the length of the album. A lot of bands or artists will write 40 songs and choose 10. Well, Annie and I would write, right, we're doing this album called Touch, and we would write the songs literally between us, half an hour, 45 minutes at the most on one song. But while we were writing them, I tended to be recording them and sort of producing them at the same time. So it was all going down. So we'd say to the label, we're going in the studio to make an album on, January the 10th. And we'll give it to you on February the 12th or something. And I remember John Preston one time said, do you mind if we hear some demos? I said, oh, we don't make demos. We haven't written the songs yet. We're just going to go on the album and in the studio and make it. And that's what we did. So Touch, we had Here Comes the Rain Again, Who's That Girl? By then we were on a roll.
Let's talk about the Who's That Girl video, which is really iconic, seeing Annie playing both a man and a woman and looking fantastic as both. And then it also features a number of famous faces, Bananarama, Marilyn, Hazel O'Connor, Kiki Dee, the girls from Bucks Fizz.
Yeah.
Were they all your pop star mates at this point?
No. The first two videos, Sweet Dreams and Love Is a Stranger and Never Gonna Cry Again, I wrote the storyboard for. In this Who's That Girl video, I didn't write the storyboard for it. It was being directed by somebody else, and their idea was Annie's playing a character who's kind of annoyed in a kind of Dusty Springfield kind of setting, and so Dave, you need to be at a table with these various people. And I had never Siobhan before from Bananarama. I think the only person I'd met before was Kiki Dee, because I got signed by Elton John to Rocket Records when I was like 19, and so was Kiki Dee.
Yeah.
So I didn't know Bucks Fizz or anybody really, and And literally, they were there at the table for like 10 minutes, and it was next, and Annie becoming a man. We did that really brilliantly in America at the Grammys, which caused massive controversy because when we performed Sweet Dreams at the Grammys, in the rehearsal, Annie was dressed normal and, John Denver was the host, but we knew that then quickly backstage she was getting her hair, a black wig, and then cutting bits of the wig and blowing it onto her face like stubble. Mm-hmm. And she came out as kind of like an Elvis character, but singing in a girl's voice. We all on the stage knew, and honestly our backing band was the B-52s and the brothers Johnson and people from Talking Heads. It was like a gang, and we all knew, so we were trying not to sort of laugh, because the audience's face was a bit like that Sid Vicious video when he sings My Way, and the audience, and they've all got their mouth open like, what's happening? It was quite a clever trick, because we weren't really massively known, and Michael Jackson was, and then there was all these other stars, and the next day there was only us and Michael Jackson, I think, in every newspaper across America.
It sounds the 80s, co-hosted tonight by Eurythmics, Dave Stewart, and Dave is choosing a lot of the tunes tonight. Next up, it's The Cure. Why this song?
Again, Annie and I were like all of the bands at the time, all over the place, and every now and then a Cure song would pop up, or I'd see a glimpse of them on British TV or a video, and Robert Smith always had this really sort of brilliant, quirky way of writing lyrics and a way of performing that was unique, and to this day still does and still has. And they were just one of those bands that when we managed to see MTV or hear the radio, immediately it was like, classic British, unique, quirky track,
Show me something, show me how you just like heaven.
Dave Stewart co-hosting Sounds of the 80s with me tonight. That was from the brilliant 1987 album Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. The Cure were Just Like Heaven. Over the years, you collaborated with so many people. One of your first collaborations outside of Eurythmics was with Tom Petty.
Yeah.
On one of my favourite songs, Don't Come Around Here No More. It's got a good story attached to it, hasn't it?
Well, yeah, I don't know how long you've got, but basically, Annie and I played at the Wilson Theatre in Los Angeles, and it was the last but one gig of the tour. And I came off stage in a tiny dressing room, and Stevie Nicks was stood there, but I didn't really know who she was. I didn't recognise her. She said, I'm having a party at my house, do you want to come? And I said, okay, and I looked outside, and she had a limousine with two other girls in a limousine, and we just had a massive celebratory night. I mean, all the female singers had turned out to see, everybody from Barbra Streisand to Tina Turner to check out what was this band or duo. Sam from Sam and Dave leapt on the stage and was singing. It was crazy. So I just got in this car, we went back to Stevie's house, and then I realised that there wasn't a party, and I couldn't find them anywhere. It was a ginormous sort of gothic house in Beverly Hills. So I went around this house and found this sort of guest room that looked empty, and just went to sleep in there. And Stevie came in at 5 a.m, sort of trying on different Victorian night dresses. You can imagine.
In the room where you're sleeping?
Yeah, she didn't know I was in that room. And the next morning she said, you better go out because, my boyfriend's coming or something. And then I heard this argument, saying, don't come around here, whatever. And I had a little tape recorder, and I made this track, like, don't come around here no more, with a sitar. So when I came back to LA, I was starting to live with Jimmy Iovine in a house on Mulholland, and he was producing Stevie Nicks, but I didn't know they'd been living together and had recently split.
So that's who she was having the argument with?
Not necessarily. That's what I'm telling you. It's a long story. But anyway, basically, to cut it short, Jimmy had heard this song and was, God, this is massive for Stevie. So they were producing it, but Stevie was in a bad mood with him, so she kept reciting Shakespeare over the verses. And so Jimmy was really mad, and we were in this room, there's just a piano, me and Stevie, and Jimmy's gone, look, Stevie, like, embarrassing, and like, you don't do this, it's my friend David, you don't really know him. She goes, what are you talking about? We slept, together the other night. And Jimmy's like, looking at me, like, what? And then it went downhill from there, basically. So then Jimmy said, oh, well, I'm ringing Tom Petty, and he got Tom Petty to come in. Tom Petty heard it. He goes, oh, I want this because last time it was Stop Dragging My Heart Around. You put it on Stevie's album, so I want this on my album. This is my welcome to Hollywood. I was like, what's going on?
Wow.
We went to his house in the Valley, and he had a studio in his garage. This is all the same day. We started making the record, and Tom was singing it, and the band were a bit dubious because they're like a sort of Tom Petty rock band, and here's this weird English kid with a sitar going there. But in the end, it became a huge hit for them, and then the video, it was a very strange video, and it got banned at first. It was the Mad Hatter's Tea Party, and I was the caterpillar on the top of the mushrooms that tumbled down, and Alice fell backwards into this world. And it was all very weird, but it became a huge success for them in America.
It's a brilliant song. We better play it.
You don't come around here no more.
Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and Don't Come Around Here No More. How'd you get to a point of collaborating with other musicians? Are you friends first and then you decide to kick some ideas about? Or is it their people reaching out to your people? How does it normally work?
Well, this has always been a strange thing for me because I have never approached or rang up record labels or anything and said, hey, I really want to produce this. Either people have approached me or I've met somebody and we get on really good and we start sort of jamming about. No, that's quite, could be a song and it could turn into a song, but then we might not like it or whatever. So it's always been very sort of lackadaisical. I never tried to make my career as a producer. I could have done and said, right, I'm a record producer now. But I was always interested in, you know, playing live and focusing on Eurythmics. And then I got interested in other things, you know, being a photographer. I was always filming everything. And then every now and then I would write a song or produce something with, you know, songs that people didn't realise that I was writing, because I would change my name to, like, Jean Guillot.
Yeah, why Jean Guillot?
Well, I was sitting next to my friend Manu Guillot, who's an engineer in Paris.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm going to write this under pseudonym, like Stay with Shakespeare's Sister, or all the Shakespeare Sisters songs that had Jean Guillot on that.
And
that
Alison Moyet as well.
Oh, was I called Jean Guillot on that?
I think you were.
Yeah, I was, yeah. And
any other pseudonyms?
yeah, Boo Boo Watkins, Raymond Doom, some other ones.
Yeah.
And I would just not worry about it. It wasn't until ages later, my managers, they kept saying, who is this Jean Guillot? And why is it all jumbled up with your stuff? I'm constantly interested in creativity, you know, and people think I'm like a sort of workaholic, but I don't actually start work till about 12:30, and I insist on stopping at 6:30. And before that, I do various things that are like, you know, ritualistic things, like exactly what I eat for breakfast. I meditate for this amount of time.
What do you eat for breakfast?
I eat sliced apple, I have green tea with honey, and I have fresh lime squeezed on the apple.
Every day?
Every day.
Yeah.
Every single day, no matter where. If you look where I'm staying now, you'll see the limes and the apples and coconut water, fresh coconut water.
Yeah.
If you can get fresh coconut water, obviously there's lots of coconut water you can buy here in London.
Mm-hmm.
And then I meditate for about 20 minutes. Then I answer things that look reasonably urgent. And then I go for a walk or swim or whatever I can do in the area I'm in. Then I come and have like kind of brunch, and at 12:30 I go, right, I'm going in the studio, or I'm going to go and write this, or I'm going to do that. And between 12:30 and 6:30, everything else is organised. This is absolute chaos between 12:30 and 6:30 in the studio to come up with the magic thing. And at 6:30 I stop, 7:30, vodka martini.
With your own vodka?
Now with my own vodka. That's why I only drink one vodka martini, because very dangerous having your own vodka. But I'm going to send you some.
Okay. I'll hold you to that. Thank you. It sounds of the 80s, and your bit in the middle, Dave, is coming up next. Time for Dave's bit in the middle. Mega track you've chosen. Why this one?
Well, the first time I heard New Order's Blue Monday, I was like flipping out. It was great because it was just ignoring anything that should be like, how long should a drum fill be? Should this hi-hat play at the same time as the bass drum? Like, then it goes into that great riff, you know. The sound of like the doom, doo-doo-doom, doom, doom, at the same time as the sequences and everything. I don't know, there was just something about it. I thought, oh God, well, this is one of these tracks I'm going to listen to forever, which I have done. So that's why I like to play it.
New Order and Blue Monday, so that's Dave's bit in the middle, and time now for my bit in the middle, which is one of your songs, This City Never Sleeps, off the Sweet Dreams album. Mm-hmm. It's one of your favourites too, isn't it?
It is one of my favourites. See, everybody thought we were an electronic duo, you know, as soon as we brought out Sweet Dreams, but if you listen to that record, the first thing I did was record the wheels of the tube train in Camden Town Tube Station, and then that turns into my guitar with a slide, making a kind of sound like the tube train, and then it has this little, you know, very constant doom 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 doom, but it's my guitar and a sequencer of a synthesizer together, and then the keyboards creep in and it gets more and more atmospheric. Yeah, and so I loved it. And then when I first arrived in America with Annie, we had a new manager, and he said, hey, there's a song on your album called This City Never Sleeps, and there's this director, he wants to use it in a movie. And I was like, great. He said, in fact, if you go to this address, they're going to show you it on a reel. I said, great. So I went there. I'm sitting in this dark room with a projector, you know, an old-fashioned projector, and the track starts on the projector, and it's just Kim Basinger in 9.5 weeks.
Wow.
And she was watching in the movie a projector as well.
Right.
So it was quite trippy. I was like sat there for about 8 minutes, and this whole scene happened, and I came out and nobody there, just an editor saying, okay, thanks. I went back to my manager and I said, God, how much do I have to pay for that? He said, no, they're paying you. I thought, what?
What a great story. Here's This City Never Sleeps.
You can hear the sound of the underground train.
Eurythmics and This City Never Sleeps. It sounds of the 80s. It's our Sweet Dreams 40th anniversary special. And Dave Stewart is with me to the very end, whether you like it or not.
Well, we're back after the news with an angelic number one.
Eurythmics and There Must Be an Angel Playing My Heart Saturday night. It is Sounds of the 80s, co-hosted tonight by Dave Stewart from Eurythmics. That was from Be Yourself Tonight, your only UK number one single, topping the charts in 1985.
It was interesting, that, because in different countries in the world, we had different songs were number one. So Poland, for instance, number one was I Saved the World Today.
Yeah.
And Germany would be something else, and Australia would be Would I Lie to You, and Sweet Dreams would be number one in America. Fortunately, they were all reasonable hits in all the countries. But There Must Be an Angel, of course, in America, you know, you can imagine on the video, they're looking at this in the middle of Texas, and there's Annie, and I'm sitting like the Sun King, sort of throwing golden coins with these assistants with white doves, and there's little kids running around, and Annie's dressed in these angelic outfits, and an opera singer singing, you know, which he was on the record. I got an opera singer from the Paris Opera, singing this, la 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 la. In Texas, they're probably sitting there going, I just watched that video by Eurythmics. It was like a hog trying to read a wristwatch.
And, of course, Stevie Wonder on harmonica, which was soon after he played harmonica on Jackie Can's I Feel For You. Coincidence?
Yeah, total coincidence, because Annie, when she was playing There Must Be an Angel for the first time on the piano, I was all excited to say, I think I've written a song for Stevie Wonder. She was playing it, and I said, but you sound great singing it. Why don't we get Stevie Wonder to play the harmonica? And she said, well, that'll never happen, I don't think. We sent off a cassette, and somehow it got to him. We got a message back saying, yeah, he'd love to do it. He said he'd be there about 6, but, you know, you're not quite sure. And we stayed till like midnight and this is in Santa Monica, in a studio. No Stevie Wonder, so we were really tired. Went back to the hotel, just walked into the room. The phone rang and they said, hey, the studio's on the phone. Stevie Wonder's back at the studio. And we're like, oh no, we had to drive back.
And what time was that?
Oh, it was like 1 a.m. or something.
Musicians, huh?
And anyway, he had his beads were being tied up into a sort of little bag so they didn't rattle while he played. So we just got there in time. And we played the track, and he just played that whole solo down in one. And it was incredible, and we were like cheering and going, oh my God, amazing. But me being stupid, like, and paranoid producer, thinking, I hope that made it to the tape. So I said, well, it was amazing. Should we try another one for luck? He said, sure. And he came along, came to the part, and he just played an Irish jig. Because he knew the first one was great. But actually, after that, he took me out in the car park and drove around the car with me in the passenger seat in the dark.
Come on.
That was scary, yeah. There was nobody in the car park, so we were quite lucky.
And were you guiding him?
Oh, every now and then I say left a bit.
Okay, you're playing some of your favourite songs tonight, as well as your Eurythmics tracks that we're playing.
Yeah.
And next up, the Pet Shop Boys. What a song. West End Girls.
Yeah. I was always really impressed by the Pet Shop Boys, everything about the way they appeared, the way they performed, the lyrics, everything about them. And then when this song came out, I was like, wow, that's like a really, really killer song. I wouldn't say I was jealous, I was just a bit like, yeah, wish I'd written that. And it was a particular moment in time, wasn't it, where everything was peaking, 80s music, and they just hit the nail on the head.
Reaching number one in January 1986, Pet Shop Boys' debut hit, West End Girls. There were a lot of duos in the 80s. Why do you think that was?
I think everyone gets sick of being in a group.
Less people to fall out with?
Well, I don't know really why there were a lot of duos. I mean, you know, Soft Cell.
Erasure.
Erasure. Yeah, I don't know. Like, nobody's ever sort of put that together yet. I don't know why. I think duos actually made very minimalist music. There was not a lot of music on.
And like you said earlier, in their bedrooms.
In the bedrooms, like, you know, Soft Cell, if you imagine, you know, not just Tainted Love, but, you know, that great song, he goes, take your hands off me. There's hardly anything on it.
Yeah.
It's just like, every now and boom, 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 you know. And I think the simplicity and the duos stripping it down to just the bare essentials of the melody, lyrics, simple beat and chord change was a bit of a relief.
This next artist also started out as one half of a duo, Alison Moyet, formerly of Yazoo, who struck out on her own in the mid-80s. How did you get to work with her?
Well, that's a funny story, see, because Jimmy Iovine and I used to live together in this house on Mulholland Drive in America, in Los Angeles. And there's this guy called Shelley Yakus, and he's a great engineer. And Jimmy had took over A&M Studios and had Shelley rebuild the studios. And we would drive there every day. We'd just hang around the studio. And Jimmy, he used to call me the chorus king. I remember I was in this room, a kind of office next to Jimmy, and he just brought Alison Moyet in. I think he gave us half a bottle of brandy or something. And said, look, you two sit in there.
Get to know each other.
And they will come up with something with you, whatever. And yeah, it was, you know, basically we wrote the song in half an hour or something. And that was it.
And it's another Jean Guillot composition.
I call myself Jean Guillot. It was called Is This Love, which, by the way, if Alison hears this, I love the way she's deconstructed it these days and does it slower, and she had string players in it. Because, you know, there's some great words on that, and it's going by so fast on that pop single, but there's some really brilliant lines that Alison wrote, very sort of touching and moving.
Alison Moyet, Is This Love? Co-written and produced by my co-host tonight, Dave Stewart. Simon Waters says, you've collaborated with so many people, but who would you have liked to have worked with but never got the chance? Or who would you still like to work with?
There was a guy in the 80s that I loved called Billy Mackenzie. He had a band
from
called
the Associates.
Yeah. And we spent some funny times, like having to go to hospital with a champagne bucket on our heads and things like that. But we never got to sort of write and record together. And here's somebody from back then. Somebody now, I absolutely think Sam Fender's incredible.
I agree.
He's from 10 miles away from me, even though I don't think he'll ever work with me because I'm from Sunderland and he's a massive Newcastle supporter. No, he's great, and I've played live with Springsteen, and I've worked with Tom Petty, and a lot of the kind of stuff, when I watched him supporting the Killers at Arsenal Football Stadium, a lot of the feeling had this kind of Springsteen type of concert, so I understand it completely, and I'd love to do something with him, but I don't think you'll agree because I'm from Sunderland.
I'm sure he won't hold that against you.
I bloody will.
And let's just put that out there. We'll put that out there. Sam? Okay. Trevor Ward in Hove says, you produced Fergal Sharkey's debut solo album after the Undertones split up. Was Fergal's change in music your idea or his idea?
Fergal, I told him about this because when he wanted to do it, I was such a fan of the Undertones and the sound of them. He was like, I can't do his accent, he got a very strong Irish accent, but he's like, I want to do pop music, I want to do this, I want to do that. He's a very interesting chap. Then I got Ben Montench from the Heartbreakers, who'd written a song called You Little Thief.
Yeah.
And he was a very slow, you little thief, you made me love you. And I said, Ben, can I have that a minute? And turned it into this really sort of big sounding pop sound. And then there was a girl called Maria McKee, and she was tipped, she was very early on the cover of Rolling Stone, Springsteen, everybody talking about her. But they'd missed this one song off the album, and she was playing it on a piano in my sort of bedroom at Jimmy's house. She was just playing this song, Well, a good heart is hard to find, true love, the lasting kind. I said, I just recorded on a cassette. I said, do you mind if I record that? Somebody else, she says, yeah, because they didn't want to record it. So I did it with Fergal.
I hear a lot of stories, I suppose they could be true.
Hayley Trent in Sheffield says, what was it like working with the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin? I'm a huge fan of both Aretha and Eurythmics, so this is where two of my favourite worlds collide.
Well, it was interesting because Aretha arrived and she said she'd been up all night cooking chicken wings for me and Annie. But Annie was vegan at the time, and so it got off to a sort of funny start. And also...
Did you eat the wings?
Oh, yeah, I was stuffing myself with Aretha's chicken wings. But Annie also, had sort of the cropped hair, and we both looked like the odd couple, so Aretha was not quite sure. Anyway, I had this amazing moment where we went into this little room and it was just a piano and myself and Aretha. And Aretha was sort of being quite moody, quiet, and there was 4 guys she brought with her in the other, I could see through the window, her brother, Reverend Franklin, and some others. And she just sat at the piano and she just started singing The Way We Were by Gladys Knight. And she didn't stop. She did the whole thing like in a really sort of tearful, epic way. And I was like, wow, I'm like stood there, I'm a kid from Sunderland. So Aretha Franklin here in a room, just the two of us, and she's singing, I remember the way we were, and I'm like, wow. Anyway, afterwards she got the lyrics and she said to me, so Dave, so sisters are doing it for themselves, and said, and ringing on their own bells. And she was like trying to make sure that she wasn't singing here a gay anthem, not that she was opposed to it, but that it wasn't about her and Annie, and it's an anthem for women, and Annie had written it in a kind of poem, and I'd sort of say, well, how about this? I'd recorded this giant shaker and made it very sort of R&B sounding. And when I assured Aretha, no, it's a real anthem for women, she was all for it. And then when Annie, who was obviously nervous, going to sing with Aretha Franklin, decided to put them facing each other on mics, right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine? And so Aretha she was smoking a cigarette, you know, and it was like, Annie didn't smoke, and it was like, Aretha had this like sort of Levi jacket with the sleeve off, and she's smoking a cigarette, and the track starts, and Annie's going to sing the first few lines or whatever, warming up. And it was really good because Annie came in and I visibly saw Aretha go, oh, and she put the cigarette and pulled the jacket up a bit, and like, this is going to be a serious thing, you know, because she had no idea.
Yeah, this girl can sing.
Yeah, this girl can sing. So at the end, it's alive, them riffing on top of each other. And at the end, Aretha was so excited about it. And then George Clinton came down from upstairs. He was in another studio from P-Funk, you know.
Yeah.
And the whole room was like vibrating this. And it became this, you know, epic anthem. It still is.
Do you ever pinch yourself? I mean, every famous musician in the world at some point has crossed your path.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever pinch yourself going, wow, how did this happen?
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I've even had just the doorbell ring and the person's there, you know, like in the middle of the countryside. It's Quincy Jones. and
Oh, not you again, Quincy.
yeah, no, not tonight, Quincy. Anyway, it's something that has happened to me, honestly, even when I was really young, before Eurythmics or anything like that. Hey, I got signed by Chris Blackwell when I was like 18 or 19 to Island Music. The next thing I know, I'm in Basing Street in the Church Studios, and there's Traffic and Nick Drake and John Martin. And then Bob Marley arrives first time for his European tour. And I'm just stood there like, whoa.
You're a talent magnet, aren't you?
I don't know. I'm very sort of open to anything can happen. So it usually does.
His sisters are doing it for themselves.
Now there was a time people hear what we're saying on the
Eurythmics together with the Queen of Soul, and sisters are doing it for themselves. It sounds of the 80s. We continue our Eurythmics celebration right after this. The biggest hit from 1986's Revenge, number 5 here that September, the brilliant Thorn in My Side. Dave Stewart, my co-host tonight on Sounds of the 80s. Inevitably, Dave, many listeners have asked, will you and Annie reunite for a tour or residency? I hear Vegas is nice.
Mm-hmm. No. See, Annie has said many, many times over the years, she just doesn't want to tour. Touring is a huge, massive thing with trucks and flying about and then, you know, go on the stage singing for 2 hours. And she didn't even tour very much with her solo stuff. I mean, tiny amount of touring, especially now as time goes on. She just doesn't want to tour. We've been offered everything on the planet.
I can imagine.
You can imagine, you know. It's
Yeah.
like, and she doesn't want to tour. She doesn't want to retire. She wants to carry on doing things, she just doesn't want to tour. And I obviously did want to tour all those years. And now, after being through the induction in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the induction in the Songwriters Hall of Fame, 40th anniversary of Sweet Dreams, I decided to do something that was Nile Rodgers' idea in the first place, who said at the end of Meltdown, would I do a Eurythmics set with different singers? And he would play, and we did it at the Royal Festival Hall. And I came up with a name because I had to call it something, so I called it Eurythmics Songbook. It was great, went down a storm, great reviews. And then I thought, oh, great, I'll take this on the road. Then COVID happened, just like it did for everybody.
Yeah.
But now all of this stuff has happened since then, with being inducted and all these things and the 40th anniversary. I said, well, hang on, I already did this once and it worked really good. So now I'm going to take it on the road, playing Europe, playing here at the London Palladium, playing in my hometown of Sunderland.
Yeah, you're playing in Sunderland at the Empire on the 10th of November and the London Palladium on the 16th.
And then we're playing in Europe. I've got an all-girl band of musicians that are all brilliant virtuoso players, and 3 female singers that have all got different qualities and sounds to their voice, and they can create all the harmonies on the record and everything. And I made it into a show, you know, a proper show with, like, I made a huge screen that is long and thin, that these movies are going across, then turns into sort of like oblique kind of conceptual pieces that fit with the song that's playing. All the players were all dressed in a certain way that connects to the screen. It's hard to explain it, you know, it's like going to see a show.
But it sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's like going to see a show and hearing all the songs which nobody will have heard live for 25 years, so...
Can I come?
You certainly can.
Thank you.
And I'll give you a bottle of vodka.
Yay! And your daughter Kaya is singing with you. Is she good?
She's amazing. She's sang with me since she was 5. She's Annie's goddaughter, actually, so she would be sitting on Annie's lap, you know, when she was 4 and 5, singing There Must Be an Angel. Then she's played about over 100 and odd shows herself, solo, including she was the youngest person to do the Warp Tour in America, which is this very heavy-duty festival tour where it's like boot camp. Yeah, she's sung with me at the Hollywood Bowl. She's sung with me since she was like probably 12 or 13, and she's best friends with Vanessa Amorosi and Holly. So they're the other 2 singers, and they sound great together.
Next up, a track from my favourite band, next to Eurythmics, of course, U2, and I still haven't found what I'm looking for. Why this?
Annie and I met U2 very early on. We supported them at Phoenix Park in Ireland, and I immediately became friends with Bono and Edge, and I've done so many things with them. I know their songwriting process and, you know, how it come about, and Edge with all of his amazing delays, and they go through a torturous process, you know, of like soul searching and finding that thing. And so this particular song, it's just a beautiful song, whether it's acoustic or whether it's... Actually, they just recorded in my studio acoustic together, Bono and Edge. So, yeah, when this song came out, it's just got that great pulsing, but it's got that great U2 sound. And I could have chosen lots of different ones, but that one, at that particular time, meant a lot to me.
Here's I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. U2 and I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. Dave Stewart, my co-host on Sounds of the 80s tonight. So we just talked about the tour that's coming up. What's also in the pipeline for you right now? You've got the new musical, The Time Traveller's Wife, which you co-wrote with Joss Stone, and that's out now.
Yeah, at the West End at the
Apollo Theatre.
The Apollo Theatre, yeah.
Yeah. And you've got a movie you were telling me coming out.
Yeah, it's kind of a modern opera, very strange film. The actress in it is performing with me in a band, Italian band, and she has a disassociation kind of episode, and she thinks it's all happening in real time, but it only happened in a flash, a few seconds. But the film, it goes very dark. I don't want to tell you any more.
Funny that.
Yeah. It goes very bleak.
Yeah.
But comes out the other side.
When can we expect to see that?
Well, it's opening at Rome Film Festival, then it'll go around to film festivals. You know, that tends to be these kind of films, and then it'll appear somewhere.
And what's it called?
It's called Who to Love.
Who to Love?
Yeah, Who to Love, yeah.
Who to?
Who to, not Hooter.
Oh, yeah, I thought it
Who to Love.
Yeah. Who to Love. All right, let's head next to 1987 Savage. My producer Johnny California Through the Glass. It's his all-time favourite Eurythmics album. From that album, The Cooler Than Ice, You Have Placed a Chill in My Heart. Eurythmics, and You Have Placed a Chill in My Heart. Special song for you?
Yeah, it's very interesting because, you see, that whole album, I sort of made all the music separately to Annie. I was in the fumoir of an old chateau in northern France, the fumoir being a smoking room, a tiny room, on this thing, a beast of a machine called a synclavier with my friend Ula Romo, a drummer. It'd take ages to work out how to play one note even, you know, it's like a nightmare to make it. Anyway, and then it was only afterwards, back in Paris, where Annie then did the vocals. So it was the first time we'd done a thing where I was making tracks separately and not in the same room, and Annie was putting the vocals on later. Obviously I was with her then, and we were in the studio, but they all came out like boom, 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 you know. And this particular one we used to play live just with an acoustic guitar, and it used to work so great. In fact, we played whole sets with just acoustic guitar or a dobro guitar. We can play any of our songs in any way.
It just shows how strong the songs are.
That's what it has to be. That's why I'm excited about the show, because the songs stand up for themselves. You know, they're very powerful songs. And this one, I think with an acoustic guitar, was one of the ones we would like. It's one of the show-stopping songs.
Well, sadly, we've only got time for one more song, and it's coming up right after this. Co-hosted by Dave Stewart.
Hello.
And me. And we've run out of time.
No worries.
And the song that we're going to finish the show with tonight is a song that you used to end your Eurythmics tours with, The Miracle of Love.
Exactly. And the very first, when we first stopped playing for a long time, we stopped for 10 years before peace, we were sat on a bench in Rio de Janeiro, and we were about to play in front of 100,000 people. And we both just looked at each other and sort of decided, yeah, I think we should stop now. We both went, yeah, we're exhausted. Anyway, the end of that film, it's great because it's called The Miracle of Love, and we always ended the show with it. And we were bowing and holding hands. And Sophie Muller, a great director, she had that on film, and as we let go of our hands and walked on different sides of the stage, it just freezes. And it's a really epic song. How the song started, I wrote the chorus in the kitchen on acoustic guitar. I was just singing, the miracle of love will take away your pain. When the miracle of love comes your way again. We're going round in a circle.
Yeah.
And then Annie came in and wrote these amazing verses. It just became this song that the audience would be in tears. It would be like the end. And it became our end song.
Really emotional way to finish a show.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're going to do now. Our final song on the show tonight, the brilliant Eurythmics with Miracle of Love. Just a reminder that the Eurythmics Songbook Sweet Dreams 40th Anniversary Tour is in Sunderland at the Empire on the 10th of November and the London Palladium on the 16th. Really looking forward to that. And that's it. Thank you to my very special Sounds of the 80s co-host, Dave Stewart.
Thank you for having me, Gary Davies. And thanks also to Johnny California and Simon Walcott.
Sounds of the 80s with Gary Davies and Dave Stewart is a Listen production for BBC Radio 2.